Hey everyone, welcome back to Retrospect. Today's video is a review of all the pieces that I did for 36 Days of Type for 2017. I'll be going over every piece and sort of talking through what I liked and didn't like about each letter. So the first letter is A, go figure, and I did this one kind of roughly by hand. Wanted to make it look like fridge magnets or something, alphabet soup maybe. I'm okay with it. I'm not 100% happy with the colors, but overall I think it's a good start. Now on letter B, you can see I had some trouble with the masking fluid. It kind of tore up the paper. So that's when I started really editing everything in Photoshop. And for the C, I wanted to do something a little bigger, so I made a collage of some comic pieces in Photoshop and then I painted it onto the paper. I'm fairly happy with how this one came out. I was trying to stick to a sort of blues color theme, and I think it came across because I did use blue. I just used sort of a hodgepodge of different cartoon and comic book hands for this one. D is one of my favorites, I think. I decided to do D for donut, and I've done a strawberry icing sparkly donut with some cute sparkles, inspired by an Instagram called Sweetapolita. They do really awesome sprinkle medleys. And E is also another one of my top favorites. I love Lego, and I really like the colors that I chose for this one. Now for F, I wanted to do kind of a gothic drop cap sort of style letter, and I freehanded this one so it's not as crisp as I might have liked. But I think the colors are fun and I like how it came out in the end. For the G, I whipped up a little three-dimensional looking text in Photoshop, and actually in Illustrator this time. And then I just sort of did an abstract painting in the middle, and I masked that off with masking fluid again. That's been giving me trouble on this paper. It's been kind of tearing up the paper. I stopped using it as much later on. And the H is probably the most obscure one. I thought it would be more obvious that it's an H with a Rubik's Cube facing front, but I did it twisted a bit and it doesn't come across quite as nicely. For the I felt like I should do ice cream, and I wanted to do an ice cream sandwich. And I can't really ever resist adding rainbow sprinkles to anything, so I've done that as well. This J, you've already seen a video of my painting process for this. I think I kind of overstepped my bounds on this one. Doesn't quite scream J to me, but I still really like all the little individual elements themselves. And you can see the original version is rather messy. I did a cleaned up Photoshop version for the post on Instagram. And the letter K is, I think it's not one of my favorites, but it's in like the top 15. I really like the bright colors and the flowers. I had fun just sort of making these little leaves and branches and stuff up as I went along, so it didn't really feel any pressure to plan it. It was just sort of a see what happens kind of feeling, and I like how it turned out. The L was a similar approach in that I knew I wanted to do a pattern, so I just drew some rough little fruit shapes and then painted them in a very imprecise kind of painterly way, and then filled in the background afterwards with the pink. The pink came out a little more dull than I might have liked, but overall I'm happy with this one. This M I think is probably my least liked one on Instagram. I was trying something different. I was trying to do some really chunky shapes, and it didn't quite come across how I might have intended, but I still like the colors. N is one of my most popular ones on Instagram. I have always seen those letter-shaped plates, and for some reason they sprung to mind for the letter N of all letters. I thought N is for noodles, so I did a ramen bowl, and I really like it. I could have added more detail and more tone to it, but I wanted this one to be quick. The O is another instance where some of the dots sort of smudged when I was drawing them. I'm not sure what happened there actually. It might have been on my hand. Oh no, it was on the kneaded eraser that it smudged some of the ink from those dots I tried to draw. So this one's a little messy, and Photoshop made it look neater, but I think it's still a cool comic book one. The P is one of my favorites. I just like the simplicity, P is for pansies, and I like the colors and the letter P itself. I like the painterly, scribbly look. Q, I knew I wanted to do a balloon letter for one of the letters, and Q just happened to be the one. I was like, you know what, it's got curves. I got those nice squinchy curve marks, and yeah, I had fun painting it, but I didn't push the tones as much as I would have liked. For R, it was probably one of the quickest ones. I just masked off with some tape a rough shape of an R and painted inside. This S is the most popular one. It got featured on the 36 Days of Type blog, which I was proud of. And this one probably took me under 10 minutes. I just sort of got all my favorite paint colors together and did some swooshy S shapes. I really like how it turned out, but it's just funny how the quickest one was the most successful. And this T I did after I had gone to LA for the weekend, so I was sort of trying to catch up, and I did this one really quickly. I personally don't like it. I think it's really sloppy and messy, but you know, I had to experiment. The U I like a lot, but I don't like it as much as the E. These are the True 2 Lego block colors that I had, so it looks more believable, I guess, but I didn't do any of the black outlines, which add a bit more graphic pop to it. But overall, I'm happy with the tones. I think it could have been pushed a little further. The dark's more dark and the light's more poppy, but you know, for a one-day painting, it's pretty good. And V and W both have the same approach in that I got my masking tape out and just blocked off a big shape and doodled on the inside. I was really feeling the Fine-Tec metallic gold watercolor paint these 2 days, as you'll see. And this one I was just sticking to sort of a jungly, planty color theme. And the W, there's a lot of paint on this one because I painted over and over and over until I got a nice balance. And then my husband actually suggested that I do a drop shadow in the bright gold, and I think that really brought it together nicely. For X, I kind of had to do an X-Men one. I mean, I love comic books, and X-Men are one of my favorites, so I just chose a really cool panel and painted it in on the back of the X. I always find it really soothing and fun to do comic book paintings because once you start doing the black outlines, it just comes together in such a satisfying way. And I'm pretty happy with how this one came together. I added some personal touches of the bright pink and turquoise around certain edges of things just to give it a bit more pop and dimension. The Y, I was trying to sort of catch on to the feeling I had when I did the S, but I don't think I quite got there. The colors are a little drab and it just doesn't jump out at me as much, but I still like it. The Z, or Z, but I call it Z, is for succulents. Not really, but I wanted to do another shaped planter and I just filled it with little cacti and succulents. It was fun to paint, but it took me a long time to just do all the outlining and all the details on this one. Ignore the number 1 that's backwards for now, and here's 0. I just did a quick serifed font with a nice thin top and wide edges, and then I drew on the bar for the 0 and did some rainbowy swooshes. You'll see a video of this one that I did really quickly. And this one I did it backwards. Yes. I don't know how, and I don't know why I didn't notice until my husband was like, why is the one backwards? And now I am really embarrassed, and it's a Pop-Tart, and it's backwards, and I can read, I promise you, but I just don't know how I got it backwards. Moving on. The number 2, I just wanted to draw a rainbow. It's kind of a little bit of one of my weaker ones, I think, but I like rainbows and stars and clouds, so whatever. It was a cute little guy, I guess. Number 3, I just painted down a black 3 and then kind of scribbled over it with colorful paint. I liked the idea, but I think the execution and the end result overall aren't my favorite. Getting a bit splattery. I had to tidy that up a bit in Photoshop, so there's not as much of that paint splatter that you'll see. 4 is one of my favorites. I really like flowers, and I like the color palette that I ended up with. I was using all colors that I had just had lying around in little pots pre-mixed, so it kind of worked that they were harmonious. And I like the nice bold graphic box of the number 4 and how I just had a couple of the flowers going over that. Yeah, and blue's one of my favorite colors. I think you'll see that a lot of my numbers have a strong theme of the color blue in this one. And moving on to number 5, this one was just a quick little one that I did by hand. I printed out a number 5 from Photoshop, and then I just drew a little ribbon going around it and added a rainbow. And yeah, it's a little well, it's not underwhelming, it's just not as big and in your face as, say, the number 6 is. This one I like a lot, but it's just, you know, it's my style of abstract painting. It's my favorite thing to do. I collaged some comic book elements, I did a little color wheel, and my quintessential favorite of adding circles with, that was a little number sign and numbers in them. So, yep, and sticking to the theme of blue just seems to be something that I like to do. So, yeah, this one was completely freehand. I just sort of took a big brush and drew a big blocky 6 at the start. Number 7 also got featured by 36 Days of Type, but I don't think it was as popular as the letter S, but I like this one. I think for me, the hardest part about doing abstract painting is to not just want to add all of the colors, and I think this one I did a really successful, in my opinion, job of creating a nice restricted color palette. The 8 just started with, I have a little file of clip art and printed out imagery, and I had that hand there printed, and I thought, you know, what if that 8 was just being like subtly adjusted by the hands? And yeah, nice simple graphic looking one. And number 9's probably my top 5 favorite. I experimented a lot in Photoshop with this. There's Jigglypuff, there's Pikachu, there's a cape from Batman, and then there's more of those Mickey Mouse hands. And I just used some various distorting effects in Photoshop and printed it out and painted it. My husband was like, oh, why don't you just post the Photoshop collage? And I said, I'd rather paint it, and just in keeping with the theme of this year's 36 Days of Type, I wanted everything to be hand painted. So that's all of them. It was just A to Z and 0 to 9. I had a good time doing this, but it was stressful to try to keep up with it. I don't know that I would want to do this challenge again. Last year I did it, but I did maybe 10 to 15 of the letters overall, and I did them kind of at my leisure, and I did them vectors, so that was slightly quicker. But yeah, a 36-day painting challenge is definitely a lot to take on, and I had already just come off of doing November back in November, and then before that Inktober, so it really kind of got in the way of my other projects. Like, I have a couple paintings that have been on hold for the last few months because of that, and some other projects, so I don't know that I will go back and do another painting challenge that is as intense as this one. But it was really fun, and it was great because my art got seen by a slightly different audience than it might have seen before with the hashtag from all the 36 Days of Type. So yeah, I mean, I think challenges are great, and they're a really fun way to expand your artistic skills, but they are a big commitment. Anyways, I hope you guys liked watching this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!